Right, hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Panachecast. This is Panache Software's weekly LegalTech podcast, and I'm Peter Davis, and with me as always is my co-host Neil Pemberton.
Hi.
Hi, and this week we're going to go for something a little different, aren't we? We're going to look at how you can use some of the Microsoft stack to investigate and even do some of your own chatbot functionality.
Yeah, exactly. So we mentioned last week Slater and Gordon, who have decided to move a large portion of their practice onto the Microsoft stack of tools. And we mentioned as well about how many tools Microsoft have, and probably many of which you will have access to, but you may not be using. I know I have access to a lot of Microsoft tools that I don't use at all. So what we're going to show you is a quick and easy way of you getting involved and being able to significantly enhance your technological capabilities, but without necessarily having to go off and spend a load of money on a brand spanking new solution, or some marketed product that might cost you a lot of money. The idea here is to get people who don't necessarily have a lot of coding or any coding experience able to create something which looks pretty good on their own website and can help them deal with a lot of admin queries and so on. And it's really to show you how easy it is and remove some of the mystery and mystique from these things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things we want to do as part of these podcasts is to demystify some of these practices, to say, okay, there's lots of people out there talking about chatbots, talking about AI solutions. You may not understand how they work and stuff. We want to show you how easy it is to get involved with these things, to do them yourself, and to take those first initial steps in, to just see what is out there, so that if you do then come to buy a solution, go out to market to look at these things, you actually understand how these things work and how they can be used and what it entails on your end to get them up and running.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully you'll get a taste as well for what the potential for these things are. But do you want to chat through what we're going to be looking at, and specifically in terms of what we're covering?
Yeah, so we're going to look at the Microsoft Cognitive Services here, and we're going to be looking specifically at their QnA Maker, and this can provide the framework for you building your own chatbot. And what I'm going to do is we're going to take you through going directly from a frequently asked questions document. For this time, we've chosen an example of the SRA pricing guidelines, something we've talked about before, that you now have to provide, and taking that information from an FAQ, which may exist on your website already, and just creating a chatbot from that with no code at all, and going all the way from taking the FAQ, creating the chatbot, and getting that working on your website as an example.
Exactly. Yep.
So
we'll cut to it now.
Yeah. So without further ado, we'll go to the demo and show you all that working. Okay. So let's start with the demo, and this is intended to be a zero coding demo. Although that's a slight lie, there's probably going to be at least one line of code which is going to have to be done to get this to work. But hopefully you should be able to follow along. It uses the Azure Cognitive Services, which you can see here. All the links that I go through will be listed in the description if you need to go and have a look yourself. But as you can see, there's numerous cognitive services that are provided as part of Azure. There's vision ones that can identify things in images. There's speech recognition, there's search, there's language to do translations and things like that. And all of these are services that are provided by Microsoft Azure that you can just sign up for and use in whichever way you see fit. So the cognitive service we're going to be using this time is the QnA Maker, which also utilizes Microsoft's bot framework, and we go into that in a little bit in more detail soon. So how are we going to start getting going with this? Well, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to create our question and answers. So here we can see our initial question and answers document. This is just a simple Word document which was put together, and these are just example Q&As. Don't read too much into the detail in them. We're just giving you an example of something that you might be able to use to put up something like the SRA pricing information on your site and make it a more interactive element. So here we go. We've got our Q&A document, and the first thing that we notice is that we've got two questions here. one about conveyancing, one about debt recovery. Now, one of the things that you want to do when you're looking to start something like a chatbot, you really need to look at the data that you're going to be using as the basis for that, and the Q&A details, and look at simplifying that information down to make it more readable and understandable by the user. In this instance, 2 questions isn't really a lot for a Q&A, so what we're going to do is split this up into multiple smaller questions, and this is something that you want to look into do anyway with your documents, just to make things a bit more readable, and there's a lot of information on things like legal design that organizations like Legal Geek are pushing to make documentation, make things like this more understandable to users, using simpler language, using images, flowcharts, anything that allows people to understand them better. So have a look at those kind of things. Again, I'll link to those details in here. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this document, we're going to split it into several smaller questions, and then we're going to actually add that to a web page. Okay, so here we go. We can now see the that original FAQ document that consisted of 2 questions, and we've actually put that into our website, and we've split the questions up a little bit, just to make them easier to understand for people, so that they haven't got one question and they get reams of data back. They can ask small, concise questions and get a bit of information back for that. So this is ready to go now. We can now use this as the basis for our chatbot. The first thing we need to do is we need to have a Microsoft Azure account to do this. Now you can sign up to Azure for free, and indeed in this example, the tiers that we will be using for the chatbot and the QnA Maker, you can use the free tiers, and that will probably provide you with enough resources to actually run something like a simple chatbot like this without any cost to yourselves. If you need to go into more detail, if you need higher resources and things like that, then those come as a chargeable within Azure. But assuming we've set up a Microsoft Azure account, and here we are now logged into Azure on my system, the first thing we need to do is we need to create a resource group. Now the resource groups are there to group together various components that you're using. So in this instance, we're going to add a new resource group, and we're going to call this our chatbot example. And everything that we now produce is going to go into that resource group. And I'm just going to switch the location or the region. This isn't strictly necessary. You can host your data anywhere, but I'm going to choose the UK South region. That's where we're based. So I'm going to review and create this, and I'll create my resource group. And you can see over here that it's gone ahead and it's creating this resource group, and here it is. This is it set up now. So now we're ready to go with the actual creation of the chatbot. And in this instance, what we're actually going to be doing is creating the knowledge base that the chatbot runs off of. So here we go. We've gone to the QnA Maker area of the cognitive services, and this is where we actually create the knowledge base. So we're simply going to click on create a knowledge base, and the first thing we have to do, it takes you through this in easy steps, is we've got to create a Q&A service. So we've clicked through to create a new service, and we're going to call this pricing bot example. We've got our pay-as-you-go subscription. Again, your subscriptions may be different depending on how you set things up. And we're going to choose the F0 tier. This is the free tier, so it won't cost you anything. And it's likely that it provides you with enough transactions to run a chatbot for free. We're going to add this to the chatbot example that we just created. And we're going to set up the indexes again. We're going to have the free pricing area, and we've got our pricing example as the actual app name, UK South, and we're going to go ahead and create that. So Azure is going to go away, and it's going to create our service to use. So we're back in our QnA Maker in knowledge base. Next step, we're going to select our tenant. We're going to select a subscription, which we've got, and we can now see that we've got our pricing bot example QnA service here. So we're going to choose that one, and we're going to give this knowledge base a name, and we'll keep everything consistent. And now we need to populate the knowledge base. Now here you can use a document, you could use a spreadsheet, PDFs, anything that you've got where your Q&As live. In this instance, we're going to point it at the website we've created, and we're going to enable multi-turn extraction from URLs, and this allows the QnA Maker to provide you with follow-on questions. So when you've got a group of questions that are all linked together, it can provide you with buttons to press to move to the next question that you might want to ask. So we're going to put that on. We're going to go back to our pricing FAQ. We're going to grab the URL and we're going to paste that in there. And the chit chat option, basically there are various personalities that you can give your chatbot. So whether you want it to be professional, whether you want it to be friendly, and this will dictate how it responds to the user's questions when they're asking things that are off the topic of your standard FAQ. So if you just say hello to the chatbot, it will respond in a different way depending on which personality you give it. As we're using this as a legal Q&A, we're going to stick with the professional. So we've done all that, and we're now going to press the create your knowledge base button. And what it's going to do is it's going to go off, it's going to look at that FAQ page that I sent it, and it's going to find on there all of the question and answer pairs. Okay, and now that's completed, and it's returned us to our actual knowledge base now, and now we can actually see that it's gone and it's found all of the questions and their associated answers, and it's put those all into a knowledge base for us. You'll notice that there's lots of other questions along here with information that it will return. This is related to, as you can see, the professional example. So if you ask any of these questions, it's going to provide you with an answer, and those will come pre-baked into it. But the actual question and answers that it's extracted from our web page are shown first. And what we can see is well, we can give this a test to see if it actually works. So we'll type in our message. So the first thing we'll do is we'll look at this first question, which is, how much does it cost to sell my property? Now, the beauty of a chatbot is you don't have to provide it with that exact phrase to get the answer. So let's see if we say something slightly different, like what's the cost of selling my property? And there you go. We've asked it the question, and it's returned with the answer, even though our question didn't match exactly what the original chatbot was, what the original knowledge base retrieved. And this is because the knowledge base uses the cognitive services, so you've got all of the language recognition built into it. So this is great. So already we've created a very simple chatbot in a couple of steps. So now let's add a follow-up prompt. So here we can see that we've got some questions that are related to each other. So if someone's asking about how much it's going to cost to sell their property, you might want to provide them with the details of if there are any additional charges or what fees also apply. And this can be done by adding a follow-up prompt. So what we're going to do here is say, when the chatbot returns this answer, there's going to be some buttons to press that provide the user with some related topics that they might also want to know the answer to. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll add a additional prompt, and we'll say, what are the additional charges? And the link to the answer, this is linked into all of the answers that it already knows about. So if we begin to start typing something, right here we can see that we've got related to mortgage in the question. So if we were to type mortgage, we're going to get that as a example. So what we're saying is if the person asks this, they will receive this in their answer. So we'll save that, and we'll also add another one saying, are there any additional fees? And again, we can see that there's a detail about charging VAT. So we will say we charge VAT, and we'll save that. So now we've made some changes. What we're going to do is we're going to press the Save and Train button. And what this is going to do is it's going to rebuild these changes and alterations into the knowledge base. So what we do now is, now that we've saved this and trained it again, we're going to test it again, and we're going to enable the multi-turn. So this is going to now pick up on these additional answers or additional questions. So we'll say, what does it cost to sell my property? And now you can see when this is returned this time, we've still got the same answer back, but we've got these additional buttons which give us information of, okay, you asked about selling a property, you might also want to know about these. So we can simply click on these and it'll say, ask that question, and we'll get the response back we need. So this shows that you can link questions together to provide the user helpful hints through your FAQ. If you know that certain question and answers are related and you want to prompt them to go there, one of the items that the SRA has picked people up on is that although you provide good information on fixed prices on websites, what you don't always make clear are items like additional fees and things. So here we're saying these are, you asked about the cost of selling the property and we prompted you with information to go and look at those additional charges and those additional fees as well. So that's good. So we've tested this. We're now happy that our chatbot is running. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to publish this knowledge base, and that means that at the moment it's running in a demo form just to check on its functionality. If we publish this, we're actually going to push that out to be a knowledge base that can then be consumed by a real chatbot. So we just click on publish, and this again is going to go away for a couple of seconds, and it's going to create this knowledge base within our Azure portal, so that we can then use it for our own chatbot or link to it for other uses. Okay, so you can see that this has succeeded and it's been deployed and it's provided us with a way of getting to this chatbot. So what we want to do now is we actually want to create a bot that people can respond to, because at the moment all we've done is created a knowledge base. So let's create the bot, and this is going to be done within the Azure portal. So we're going to go with some of the defaults here. We're going to have our pricing bot example, pay as you go. Again, it's going into our chatbot example resource group so that everything's in the same place. And we're going to set the region. And again, we're going to choose the free tier for this so that it won't cost us anything at the moment. If you find that you're using this more heavily, you may need to move up to an actual paid pricing tier, but for the moment we're going to assume that the pricing is going to be free. And the SDK language, so when you're using this functionality to create a bot, what it's actually doing is it's creating you a coded Chatbot. And that's using, at the moment, the programming language C#, and then that's hosted as a web application within Microsoft Azure. So we're going to stick with this for the moment. The application insights aren't of much use to us at this stage, but let's go ahead and create this web application. So we can see that our pricing bot has now been created, and this is now a real chatbot that's up and running within Microsoft Azure, which we can actually quiz. So let's go to test in web chat, and this is going to fire up a simple web interface to talk to our chatbot in the same way that we used the interface in the QnA Maker screen. So here we go, we've got our chatbot window, so we'll say, how much does it cost to sell my property? And hopefully what we'll get is the same result as we had in the example in the QnA Maker. What you will notice here is that those additional questions that we linked to this answer aren't showing. This is because when Azure creates this chatbot for you, it creates it in the simplest form. And that multi-turn question-answer setup is not created by default in this chatbot. So if you want to use that functionality, what you would have to do is you would have to take the source code that has now been created for this chatbot, edit it and add that functionality in. And the way you do that would be to download the project, open it in Visual Studio in a code editing software, and actually make those changes and re-upload that web application. Now that is beyond this simple example, but if you have teams within your organization, in your IT organization, who can handle that kind of thing, or you want to look for someone else to do that for you, it's a fairly simple process to do. And what I'll also link you to is Microsoft provide within GitHub some examples that you can use. So all of the coding is here, and you can see that they have some examples with multi-turn prompting. So you can just click on the link here and download that and look at how that's been coded if you need assistance with that. But again, that's a bit beyond this example. We're just going for the simplest approach possible here without any coding. So we've got our chatbot up and running. We now want to use this in our original website. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the channels, and here you can see all of the places that we can publish this web application to. At the moment, it's published by default as a web chat. So this can be included in a normal website. But you also see that you can publish this to Microsoft Teams. You can publish it to a Skype channel, to Facebook, to Slack if you use those kind of tools. So what this allows you to do is we've gone from a simple FAQ on our website, and we've now moved it to a position whereby it can be integrated into Facebook Messenger, it can be integrated into Skype. So this is really useful if you're going beyond just an FAQ thing for something like pricing that we've done for an example here. Maybe you decide to move some of your HR question and answers into a chatbot format. You can publish that to your employees via a Teams channel or via Slack or via Skype if they're using it, and they can then interact with those chatbots via those business tools that you use normally. But what we've got is we've got this published up to web chat. So I'm going to say get bot embedded codes, and what this does is it provides us with a bit of code to add to our website. And here's where I said at the initial stage, there is one line of code that you're going to have to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate a secret key, And now what we're going to do is going to take this key and this embedded code, and we're going to add this into our web page and see if we can get this chatbot up and running on the web page we looked at initially. So here we are. This is the code behind our website. So all we're going to do is we're going to paste in that bit of code that was presented to us in Azure along with the secret. We're going to save that, and we're going to push that file back up to our website. And let's go and check if that's now running on the site. And back on the site, we can see our original Q&A. We're going to refresh the screen, and we've now got a chatbot on the page. So let's see if we can check it's working. Let's ask it, what is the cost for buying a property? We've asked the question, and this will return, and here we go. So again, this will return the property, so it's picked out correctly the question and answer. So I could now remove this FAQ from the site and just leave it as a interactive chatbot. And there you go. We've taken a original Word document which had two quite large questions in. We've converted that into a smaller Q&A with simpler questions and answers, and we've taken that, we've created a knowledge base from it, we've created a chatbot from it, and we've reposted that to our website, and it's all up and running, and we've only had to do one line of code to do that. So this is something that hopefully you should be able to have a look at. You should be able to try it yourselves and get running with, and see if it's something that you can use for your own FAQ areas to provide yourselves with something a bit more interactive for your users, and also showing that when you see these examples out in the real world, when other organizations are demonstrating chatbots, hopefully it showed you that behind the scenes they're easy to set up, and there's nothing magic about these things.
Great. Okay, so you've seen now how the chatbot, how easy it is to get started with the chatbot. We had a Word document in which I put a couple of questions, and then it's really a question of thinking about how you ask those questions and how you answer them. And a lot of the work actually is not in the coding, it's in the information that you want to present and how you want to present it. But we can come on to that in a bit more detail in a minute, but what I wanted to do really was just go through a few examples and reasons why you might consider, or you ought to consider, using a chatbot if you're not now, and the advantages to using it, really. So I scribbled down, because I know some people will be sitting there and potentially thinking, well that's great.
What's the point? Yeah, I had an FAQ. Why don't people just use that?
Exactly. What's this going to do for me that I haven't already got? Well, first of all, I'm sure that not everybody watching will have an FAQ page. I had a trawl through several firms that I thought probably of the size that ought to, that will be doing the services for individuals and small businesses. And there's a lot of firms out there that don't have FAQs. And it might be because the range of services is quite wide, but the chatbot is capable of dealing with a lot of information. Yeah. So that ought not to be a detraction from using it. But also a lot of firms that I was looking at when I was thinking particularly about pricing transparency still didn't have any information on pricing. And if you're keeping up to speed with what the SRA are saying, they've carried out their first phase of investigations into firms. And I think their general finding is that a lot of firms are being transparent about pricing, but some of the hidden costs, the additional costs, ancillary things,
fees and things like that, which may be incurred.
I remember seeing one particular reference about a firm that charged a banking fee which was 10 times as much as it actually cost them to actually transfer the money. So, I mean, these are things which you need to be telling your customers about. And so that was really the basis on which, or the reason why we chose pricing as the example. So phase, the first advantage, if you like, is if you're not compliant with regulatory requirements, this might be a way that you can very quickly and easily do that. You don't have to do anything more specific than writing your pricing out, in this particular instance, in a Word document, and you can link to that, or if you've got it on your web page, then you've seen that we can link to it that way as well. So compliance with regulatory requirements is one potential advantage, and quick and easy compliance as well. More generally, it's an admin and it's a time saver. And we talk a lot about not necessarily saving the admin and the time of the lawyers doing due diligence and whatever it is that lawyers do, but it's admin related time. So if you're sitting and thinking, I don't take pricing queries anymore. My secretary or my receptionist does that. That's great. That's a first line of delegation. But actually those people, they are still taking time in answering those questions, and perhaps they ought not to be, and you can deploy that time elsewhere, right? So if time equals money, then time saved must equal money saved.
Yep.
Right? So it won't work exactly like that, I'm sure, because
I'm sure everything in legal services works around time and money.
It does,
so it must work.
Do.
Yeah.
But if you're saving 5 or 10 minutes a day on queries, it doesn't necessarily seem like, I definitely have to do that. But maybe you're saving more time than that, or over a period of time, you could potentially be saving a lot of time and money by automating these things. But more importantly as well, I think, is it's a differentiator for you. There are not that many firms that have this capability or functionality on the website. Certainly when I did a look through, I went at least 10 different firms' websites. None of them had anything like this on there. So, you can spend as much time as you like looking around. I think you'll find very few examples of firms that can use or at least deploy this technology, notwithstanding that we've shown it's very easy to do it. So, and then I think the final thing I'd like to say is that your customers, when they come to you, they will probably have been referred by a friend or a colleague who's used your firm before, or they've Google searched, or we talked about where people search for information before. They may be looking in Facebook or something and found your page, but they're going to be landing on a page of yours first, right? So that may be your website or your Facebook page. So their first interaction with your firm is probably going to be not with a person, but actually with technology of some sort, whether it's the website or the Facebook page or a chatbot. And I think personally that this is showing a sort of new level of responsiveness to customers that traditionally hasn't been there.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's take that as an example. There's, especially for local firms, maybe single person firms or smaller high street firms, I see a lot on Facebook in my local groups and stuff that I've joined, people asking for recommendations and people publicizing their own businesses and small businesses and things like that. You can imagine that as a local firm, you probably have your own Facebook page on there. As we saw in the example, there's options within the platform to push these things out to things like Facebook Messenger. So that these chatbots run in Facebook Messenger. How good is it that you've got your own local practice, you've got a Facebook page, someone goes to that Facebook page, they think, that's really good, I'd like to know more information. They might not click through to your actual website. As we were saying previously, a lot of people stay on the platforms that they use. They don't go outside of there. So instead, they can launch Facebook Messenger. They can actually have a discussion with your chatbot via Facebook Messenger, giving them the information they need to know about pricing and that without you being involved at all.
Absolutely.
So they've had that conversation, they've got that information, and it's only at the stage where they think, actually, okay, now I'm going to actually book this person to do some work. That's when the interaction begins. But before that interaction, they've already had a conversation, which, as far as they know, was with someone.
Well, it's interesting actually, because the one of the advantages which I didn't mention, it was on my list, was the potential for where this could grow and where it could go, even though what you're dealing with it, at least at the first level and at sort of phase one, if I call it that to begin with, you're just doing a basic interaction. But you remember when Amazon came along with their one-click buy idea, the number of friction points is reduced significantly. So going back to your example of saying people living within their platform, if you're looking for a recommendation for a conveyancing firm or a bit of debt recovery or something like that, and there is a page, a community page, you could click on that once, go through to your firm's website, ask about pricing on a second click, and within 3 or 4 clicks have already figured out that you're happy with the price and start to deliver work. And the potential for phase 2 and 3 for this is actual engagement of clients and rolling in of work with clients and collection of information from clients, isn't it? So there are so many advantages to starting out with something like this and then exploring where it can go. That it's got to be worth a shot.
I think so, and I think that was something we wanted to make very clear in this, is that this is designed as a first step, as a dipping your toe in the water. you may have been looking out, even if you're not a high street firm, maybe you're a large firm, a large global organization who's thinking, I'm looking at all these startups out there, I'm looking at these new software solutions, I'm looking at these new packages, and they've got things like chatbots and stuff in them. How do those work? How would I use them?
Yeah.
This gives you that initial step of demystifying that. Firstly, i.e., yes, this stuff is great now and it is complicated, and what you can do with it is really fantastic, but it's easy to get started. And it's easy, it provides you the route of, what do I need to think about when I'm going to turn something into a chatbot? How do I take my data I've got at the moment and structure it in a way that is useful to be used in a chatbot? And then, okay, I've seen it in this, I've seen how it can be used in an FAQ. Where can I go from here now? What other things can I use it for? And I think that's the key thing is to say, okay, yes, I liked it working here. It was easy to set up. What are my next steps?
Well, that's an interesting point, because I was thinking about that earlier. The initial idea might be that your early engagement with clients and saving a bit of time on pricing is the example that we've chosen. But where are your other interactions with clients and customers? And maybe let's take recruitment as one of those examples. I mean, big firms that you were mentioning earlier, they will have regular graduate recruitment schemes. Are any of those using chatbots, answering questions for students that they raise of you? I mean, a lot of firms spend a lot of money going out to, what's the word? The fairs and whatnot, where you can get
career fairs and things.
All those things. A lot of the information you supply could be available on your firm's website, but also could be on a chatbot, and you could even start the recruitment process through one of these things by having an more interactive version, of phase 2, if you like, of collecting information from people and allowing them to upload their details to your system. You can then get in contact with them, or even offering, when you offer training to people and you're trying to get people into your building, some of your customers, you do GDPR training or whatever is current, and you want to try and interact with people, this is a way that you can do that. Why should I attend your course? Well, then you could have your list of reasons why they should attend attached, and maybe a link to a website or a link to a page that says enroll here. Those are all possibilities, and it's not necessarily just about admin and time saving. It's about engagement on a much bigger picture and a much bigger scale, and showing something that nobody else is using.
And I think that's it. I think the engagement part is crucial here. This is, people are beginning to interact with things. People are using Siri on their phones. They're using Alexa on their Amazon Echoes and things like that. People are getting used to this conversational interface with systems, and this is showing, yes, we are doing that as well. We are a firm that are at that cutting edge of technology as well, and getting there in a simple way. And some of these things, what we've shown today may be enough to set you going on your own and stuff like that. If it's something that you're interested in and you don't know where to start, get in contact with us. We can help you along that route as well.
Exactly. And any more sort of advanced features or slightly more nuanced or complicated arrangements, that we're happy to help with those things. And I like the idea of, for example, sticking with the pricing idea. If the next phase, or if you like, the level 2 engagement with the client, hopefully is that you say, this is what it costs for us to do X, whatever they've asked you about, whatever service, and that you then say, would you like to instruct us? That could be another button on your chatbot. You will then have information from the customer already. Hopefully you then say, look, okay, tell us your name, because you obviously have things like conflict checks to do. But that can all be automated, and it's all very easily integrated with the chatbot feature we've shown you earlier. And so the chatbot could be not only client engagement, it could be the beginning of your automation phase, your automated onboarding of clients. Conflict checks is one, automated engagement letters, assuming the conflict checks come back clear, sending out inquiries. I mean, the list goes on, and we can come up with hundreds of examples, I'm sure, of what you could do with it.
Have a look. We I'll put the links on the video and stuff as well. We published quite a while ago an introduction to this on the Panache chatbot, which was a bit of a demo of the kind of direction we're going with the Panache legal platform as to how people might interact with these things, where it is very much not only just providing Q&A information, not only just providing answers to things, but actual data take on as well. And look at these things. Look at this example as as your first steps into that, and seeing if this is something that would suit you, because you can just build and build and build on this as much as you want. And one of the things that we want to do as Panache Legal is we want to open this up to people. We want to share this kind of technology and get people out there using it, because we know that there's a lot of people who just don't know where to start, who, when they're looking at these solutions, are thinking, I don't know anything about this, I don't know what options there are out there. We can help with that. We can help with talking to you and pushing you down those routes, because we're passionate about this technology, and using these things, and we want to help you get going with it, really.
Indeed. And if anyone's struggling for examples of how it can be used to help with various stages, then we're happy to have those conversations too. We'd love to. I mean, it's very easy to come up for us to sit here and say this is what you could use it for, but that may not suit everybody out there who's watching. It might have a particular set of circumstances. We can give you our thoughts, and I like throwing a few nuggets of interesting examples out there if we can, and we will do some more. Hopefully we will come on to another Microsoft tool about forms and what you can use with that. And if you want to just touch on that briefly now.
Yeah, I will do. And one thing I just remembered as well, we talked about how we took the FAQ initially, 2 questions. We broke that down into a couple of smaller bullet points that would work better as a chatbot. And that goes into a lot of discussions that people have been having about legal design and things, and something that Legal Geek have been pushing a lot on their site, as to how you take these unwieldy, complicated documents and you break them down into things that are simpler to understand, and provide people with better process. They've got some great documentation on that, and it's an area that people are looking at, and it's an area that we'll probably cover as well in the future, of how do you look at these things and think about them in a different way so that they work better with these new technologies. But definitely the forms stuff, I think we'll look at doing that as another session, and this is where Microsoft, their cognitive services, they provide things that can read through a form, any form that is sent in, and pick out your key bits of data and provide that to you. Now, this is something that you may think a lot of AI providers are doing. I know we talked last week about acquisitions of UiPath, and at the most recent Microsoft Build event, which I think is also linked, I linked to the video in the previous episode, and I'll do the same again now. UiPath were actually at the Build event discussing their platform, and that is backed up by the Microsoft Form Recognizer cognitive AI service. They're using it to build their application around. And this is a service that you can just use yourself as well. If you want to fire it up, if you want to do something internal with it and start building your own software, if you have those skills in-house, or even if you want someone to build that for you, they're available for you to do. There's so many startups offering these kind of solutions, and some of them are doing fantastic solutions, but it doesn't mean that you have to go to them to do it. No. You can do these things yourself, or at least you can become familiar with the technology yourself, and you can, as we said before, dip your toe in the water, see what it's like, and decide, actually, this is something I want to go down, this is something that is going to be useful to me, before you're actually engaging with a supplier to deliver those services. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that example of UiPath, we mentioned that last week. It was Deloitte, wasn't it? That
I think so.
An agreement with UiPath over the delivery of not managed legal services, but it was their way of using technology to deliver a better service, faster and cheaper overall. And we've mentioned a couple of times before about the accountancy firms and other players coming into the legal market and stealing our thunder, for the want of a better word or phrase. So this is a way of potentially answering back, and I don't know what Deloitte spent on their investigations with UiPath and whatnot, but maybe you can achieve a significant part of what they have managed to achieve in a much, much easier, faster and cost-effective way.
Yeah, definitely. It's all out there for you to be able to use, and I think people just aren't aware of these things. Exactly. And as we came back again right at the start, we want to be able to demystify some of this technology. We know that you may not know about everything that's out there, all the options out there. If you can use these things yourself, that's what we want to provide to you, to show you that this stuff is there, this stuff is usable, and in a lot of cases you can get going with it without coding. You can have a play about with it. So yeah, it's something as a continuation of the Panachecast, that we want to be able to do these kinds of sessions. As I said, we want to do some more technical things, where we're taking things like the form recognizer and guiding you through those other cognitive services. But we're also looking to provide some other sessions on other legal processing and stuff like that.
Exactly. We've had Rupert Vernals on the show before, and we've talked about the MBA Essentials and the course that he runs, and hopefully we'll go through a few examples of what that might look like and how you can start to streamline your practice and so on. And inevitably with things like forms, as Pete's just mentioned, filling out a form is part of a procedure and process, right? So we'll be looking at process mapping and those sorts of design, and how you might design and how those processes might look, and taking a transaction and breaking it down into its component parts, and then how that might fit into the technology.
To these kind of things. We'll carry on doing these things, and we'll carry on trying to get this information out there for you. And as always, you can find us at patreon.com. That's probably one of the best places. We're patreon.com/Panache Software. If you feel like supporting us in what we're doing, if we gain some more support, we'll be able to do these things as an addition to our normal programming as well, and just get more things out for you. But we're available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. And our goal is just to keep pushing this information out there.
Spread the word, absolutely.
So we'll call it a day for there. And I hope you found this interesting. As I say, if you want to know more about this thing, if you have other questions, just get in contact with us at panachecast@panachesoftware.com. And we'll help you along the way with these things if we can do.
Exactly. That's great. Get in touch.
So until next week, we'll see you again.
See you then.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.